is a good spot.
Hopefully then they don't.
The point was that we were having a conversation the other day about being African and the experience of what being African is. And I had the sudden realization that you were not Nigerian.
Because there's multiple countries in Africa, did you know? Nigeria is the only one, guys.
It is. So yeah, we were thinking about our identities as African women and if we even feel African at all. And we thought it'd be a good conversation to have.
And you are invited.
Okay, so we're just gonna ask each other a bunch of questions regarding our like African identity and what it was like growing up. Because Jane grew up in a more white neighborhood, and I grew up in Baltimore in a more black neighborhood. So, Jane, what makes you feel like you don't fit into the African box?
That's a complicated one. I think because I was born in Ghana, I lived in Kenya, but even before all of that, my mom and her sister's upbringing was like in multiple continents. It was like my grandparents lived in New York for a time. My aunt was born in New York. My mom lived here, but she lived in Ghana. She got her master's here, but she got her bachelor's in Ghana. Like, you know what I mean? So even in generational aspects of it all, I feel like parts of my family, for lack of a better term, I feel like parts of my family like assimilated to American culture. So I don't feel fully African because of that, but I also don't fully identify with like the black identity, and I'm not white. Surprise. So like I've never fully, like, as much as I understand the stereotypes within each community, I never fully identify with them, also knowing that communities aren't stereotypes. So I'm just Jane, you know. I am from Ghana. It's also raised in multiple different countries, so it is what it is.
I feel like I'm just weird. Like, I just feel like I was always...
You are, but you know.
I always feel like I was just like a really awkward kid. I was born in Nigeria, but I was raised here.
When did you come here?
When I was like 4.
Okay. Same, like 4 or 5. 5 or 6 actually. That's hilarious.
But yeah, I didn't like realize that it didn't feel like an identity to me. Like, I just was, if that made sense. Like,
you just wore Shola? Or
yeah, no, you know when people ask that question, it's like, how did you know when you were black? Like that question.
Yeah, I don't understand that question either.
It's like, when did you realize that you were black?
Is that question more rooted in when did you realize you were oppressed? Because
the thing is, so like, when did you realize that you were different from people is what the question is rooted in, I believe. But
mine was definitely like Kenya.
That's funny that you didn't realize while you were still in Africa.
Yes, I mean, I went to like private schools and stuff, so
actually,
like,
maybe
those are places because I realized I had to identify my difference before I even understood what blackness was, because black is a thing that exists in America, like in Africa.
Yeah, the thing is, I didn't even realize. I never had like a dawning, like a realization that I'm black.
I asked my sister the same thing.
Even when I was when I first came to this country and I went to preschool and I had an accent like crazy, and I was like, my name is Shalakbe, and my teacher was like, what?
People be saying that. Accents though? So like my friends will be like, your mom has an accent. I'm like, what accent?
No,
I've never heard of it.
Like, what are you talking about?
Apparently. Okay, so you know, accent and pre-K, you know.
And then I was like, yeah, my name is Shalakbe, and then she was like, what? Shola. Girl, your name is Shola. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I guess so. All right. So then, like, growing up, I just never felt, it was never like a dawning to me. Like, I understand Yoruba, I understand my language. I don't really speak it well, but it was never something that I was like, I am different. So I went to an African
different
church.
In terms of, we're still talking about being African, okay.
Yeah, so I went to an African church. I never felt like ostracized. I never really realized that I wasn't, like, I was a fake African until like adolescence maybe. when I
Like
wasn't
around what
really
age?
fitting the mold.
Okay. But you went to an African church, so you were surrounded by other African people.
Yeah, but everyone was listening to like Afro beats. Everyone was listening to all that stuff, and I was like, what is this? Like my brothers had this rock phase, and they always was listening to like all this crazy heavy metal. I think I honestly blame my brothers. I feel like if my brothers weren't also so weird, I may be more of a real African. But yeah, it's like the music that we listen to, I can't dance, like I can't do any of that. That's the stuff that makes me feel like a fake African, because I don't really like when I'm around a group of pure Africans, I'm not sure if I even feel like I belong there, unless they're like my family, unless I grew up with them.
I mean, that's interesting because I get the vibe, but I get that because I've been in African spaces. There are people who are authentically what I perceive to be like, you know, like
literally
their house smells like a cassava leaf, you know, like they just have like you know exactly what I'm saying. But even in those spaces, like we went to an African church for a brief moment. But even in those spaces, you have the black people that are going, the African people that are going to the same white schools you're going to. So you see that, like, there's people I went to church with. I did
not go to white schools,
but
so
I did.
I cannot relate.
So, like, they're all at these parties. Some of you can dance, some of you can. Whatever. We're still I'll have the burnt chicken at the end of the day. Like, there's people and even to this day, there's people that I know by their African names. Like, some white person will be like, who's Rachel? And I'm like, I was like, how do you know Rachel? I'm like, who the fuck is Rachel? Like,
I know Abna.
You know what I mean? And I have to like go into my brain to be like, I don't know who that is.
Oh no, I feel like there's fake Africans. There's like us. You know some Africans that be changing their name.
But that's their legal name. But that's not the name I know them by. I literally don't know their first name. That's how much I don't know.
That's not even what I'm talking about. There's Africans that their names would be like Timmy Talkman. They'll be like, yeah, call me Tom.
Listen, but you know, there's Asian cultures and Asian people that do that too. Though they were in my white schools as well. Do you know their legal names?
It's just so weird. Can you imagine if I start going by Sheila or something like? Can you imagine what my mom would say when I came back home?
But I feel like every Nigerian name has like a built-in nickname.
They do.
You know what I mean? So
yes.
That's not even the problem.
But that's
like,
not the same.
Why would you go by Sheila?
That's not
Nobody
the
asked you.
Your name is Timmy Talkman. It's not Tom. It's not. It's like, yeah, call me Charles.
Oh,
your name is Jiggle.
My question was more like, I already know my first one, but how do you think that, like, in your family dynamic, you're from a Nigerian family, you're the youngest daughter, and you know all the stereotypes with African daughters and the weights you have to hold, but how do you think that has impacted you personally on how you like move? First off, like, how do you feel like your role in your family system is, first off, and then how has that impacted how you move? I guess within that, but also outside of that.
I feel like that's my entire identity.
Yes, that's why I want to know.
I literally feel like
I would like to know.
That is my entire upbringing as a person, being the only girl in an African household.
But you're the youngest too.
Yeah.
So does that actually feel like you're the youngest, or okay?
Because nobody listens to anything I say.
Okay.
I could be saying something like actually logical, and it takes them a while to like really like understand that.
Okay.
So she's not just saying gibberish. So definitely, that's something I was thinking about, is that Africa as a whole is just like a couple years behind. Not a couple, but there's just like in a sense of how we treat each other and our values and stuff like that. Our values can be like something to be proud of, but can also be something that's really, really harmful in the way that women are treated, in the way that children are treated, and all that kind of stuff. So that's something that I don't really like about being African, or about my African identity.
I've never thought about it like that. I mean, yes, I've thought about like misogyny, but like, okay.
Yeah.
Because my mom loves saying that. She loves saying like, look at like Asian cultures, look at like, Hispanic cultures, they're very so much about like the family unit, which I don't want to diminish. I value that, but that stuff is not always easily transferable to African cultures, because
not even just that, but even in those other cultures,
they have
immigrant cultures
well.
it can be very harmful to have these things, because it's like there's a big like, oh, respect your elders, respect your elders. But
what about
your elders don't really be respecting you, number one, and number two is just like, it's not, things are just not given. So it's like, okay, respect your elders, but it's really like, okay, we're just not going to talk about what's really like bothering us, because we're going to go under the guise of tradition. We're going to go under the guise of like what's always been happening,
what's going to continue to happen.
Exactly. So it's not really, it's just going to like stay the same because of these values that you hold, and nobody's just going to ever deal with the issue at hand. So that's, I guess, tying back into the question you asked me, that's definitely my entire identity. Like I said, being the only girl in an African household and being the youngest, it's made me like move different and all that kind of stuff. Trying to fight for myself to have a voice, and not just in like my home or anything like that, but outside. I used to argue a lot. I've told you this before. I used to just be like, I have to tell them I am right. Like I have to be the right. I am the winner in this conversation. I must argue with everybody. So then it took me a long time when I was in high school to realize like I don't need validation. I don't need to always fight for myself to be on top. I don't need to always do that.
Why are you wearing your seatbelt?
Cause you were driving anyhow before, man. You're right though.
Okay, continue. You don't have to prove yourself.
Oh, wow. Why can I be saying it this serious? Anyway, yeah. I realized that it's not necessary for me to constantly prove myself right, or to have to be like the victor in the situation. Okay. It's okay for me to like let things go, but also knowing that there's a balance in between, because the world does treat women in a certain kind of manner that Africans do also abide by. So I had to learn how to balance like fighting for myself, but also knowing when it's not a battle, and knowing when I don't have to be right. I don't need someone else's validation all the time. I blame my parents. I don't blame my brothers as much, but I blame the culture in general.
That's what I was gonna say, because as much as like, I don't want to say I don't blame our parents, but a part of me also has to understand, like, they did what they did with the resources and the information that they had, but that also doesn't mean I'm not gonna hold you accountable today. I'm gonna tell you that you're wrong.
Accountability is a really weird thing in African culture. It's just
because everything is disrespect. Me telling you that you're not gonna yell at me is disrespect. Okay. Me telling you that if you want to have a conversation, we can do that is disrespect.
No, literally.
It's crazy, but you know.
That's why my mom is mad at me now.
Because
America, you're not gonna hear that. I have to cut that out. That's why my mom is pissed off at me now.
No,
I will tell you later.
Okay.
Do you ever wish you weren't African?
No. I've generally not. I will say, when I was younger, I was definitely doing some, especially when I was in Kenya, because you're still in Africa, but I went to British schools. Like, imagine the school you're going to, colonizers built that shit, you know what I mean? There's white people all around you. Really? They're teaching you English in schools. Like, even in Ghana, you're speaking in English. That I only understand Chui and Fanti because it's like spoken in my household around me, but I can't speak it myself, because when you go to school to learn your ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, they're speaking English. So like, my mom used to tell me, even when I was young, I literally wouldn't respond to Araba. She'd walk in the house and be like, Araba, Araba, Araba. Who's that? I've never heard of her.
Y'all hear something?
Mm-hmm. And I think, so like, I've never, at least to me, I've never consciously thought, like, no, I don't want to be African, mostly because I identify, like, who I am is literally like not feeling, like, if that makes, like, my identity is wrapped around the fact that I was, like, who are you, Jane? Where are you from? I'm Jane, I'm from Ghana, XYZ, like, if you had to list off my credentials of identity.
That's funny. So I actually don't feel like that.
I've never wished, like, I'm working on it. I'm working on not, I'm light. But I've never consciously thought, like, no, I don't want to be African, but I know that parts of me, at least in my upbringing, so at least parts of my subconscious are like, but I don't think I'm there today. But ask 5-year-old Jane.
I feel like I've definitely not ever because of what African stereotypes in America, but I think when I think oh, I don't want to be African, it's because of that very fact that I feel like we're years behind and all that stuff. So all those harmful ideas that we have
You're not in the camera.
about the family system, those harmful ideas that we have about the family system, about women, about queer people, about all those things that's like just detrimental to us as human beings.
You don't want to identify with.
Yeah.
The African people that I'm surrounded with, or the African people that I see, if you put them in a textbook and shook them up, like maybe they're not like, we wouldn't consider them to be like African to the root, you know, they just showed up, they could speak their native tongue, but they know their language, they know where they're from, they know where their family's from, they understand, they're still connected to it, but they're still we were still raised here. We still know how you have to move in this country, and we also I think this generation, at least, the thing that we have is first off understanding the differences between being black, being African, and then being you. Like if you even within the African community, there's like stereotypes and problematic stereotypes about the black community, but you realize when you walk out the door, you are black.
Yeah.
Nobody's thinking, oh, Shola from Nigeria,
Right?
You know?
Oh, she from Nigeria.
You know? That one ain't black. You don't know. Like, and I think that's something that people our age that are at least able to I can't even say have those discussions, because I can have that conversation with my mother, but I am also aware that that's not a thing. People aren't sitting down with their father to be like, listen, let us talk about this political climate.
Ooh,
that's not people don't have open dialogues like that.
Yeah, just it's weird to think that people don't have that space with their parents. Because I can do that with my mom, and I can do that, like I can have conversations, but some people can't even talk to their parents, just even
it's
come
literally
to them.
like, I'm gonna leave,
and that's trauma. That's
trauma. It is trauma.
To even be like, the way that African kids are raised in general is like can be really traumatic. Yeah, literally. And I hate that. That's something that I wish I could heal all African children. We were talking about before, like when we realized we were African or something like that. And I said it was in my adolescence, because I started noticing that we weren't listening to like the same music and stuff like that, and I wasn't really vibing the way everybody else was vibing. I wasn't really understanding.
Bro, you be calling my music campfire music. Listen.
Anyway, I can't even talk about that. But I just never fit into what being African meant to me, and then you're probably like the closest African friend that I've ever had. Honestly,
you too.
I'm trying
in terms of African, like I have black friends, I have my sister's friends, but they're not my friends. They're like sisters I didn't ask for, you know.
I don't even have that, like, because my brother's like, was like, well, I mean, yeah, but they're like the same. They're not mine. Like, yeah, it's like I didn't make you.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't make you.
I didn't like go out of my way.
We didn't form this bond on my terms.
Yeah, because there's Pam, but I was still like, okay.
You were connected because she entered your life
through somebody else. Yeah. So, so I never really had African.
That's interesting.
Friends.
That's why we're so blown. You're Nigerian.
Yeah,
never.
Exactly.
That's crazy. What?
But yeah. So the way I never felt like the right kind of African. Like I never felt like I fit into that African box like the rest of everybody else did.